Hello there, my name is Ayush Mishra. I am a student of IIM Trichy. As a part of my Indian Economic and Policy course, today I am going to talk about the twin balance sheet problem. It is one of the biggest threat which is looming around, and it has been covered quite a lot in the latest economic survey of India. So what is twin balance sheet problem? This is a problem that deals with two of the biggest economic entity, which is leveraged corporates and highly encumbered bad loans in bank. So what happened in mid 2000s was due to high growth rate in India. Many banks gave high amount of loans to the corporate at that time. Both were of the view that the economic outlook of India looked very good, and they were very optimistic about the returns they would be getting at that time. But after an economic slowdown in the late 2000s and early 2010s, what we saw was that industries were not able to give the give their interest timely, and that led to a high increase in NPA, which is non-performing assets. So when the non-performing assets of the bank increased, it reflected in their balance sheet, as well as it reflected as leverage in the corporate's balance sheet, and therefore we got twin balance sheet problem. So what has India done till now for this twin balance sheet problem? Well, India has SURFACE Act, there is asset restructuring act, debt restructuring act, and several other acts to make sure that those loans which corporate took can be given back to the banks so that they can function again. But these acts have not worked in the past, and this is due to the fact that the industries are of various kind. And for example, take steel industry. So when the banks give loan to the steel industry in high amounts, and that firm is not able to pay back that loan amount, so the loan is converted to the equity for the bank. So now bank has some kind of control over the industry, but it cannot sell all the assets because many of the assets are either depreciating or very old to be sold. And also in some of the industries, the assets cannot be sold because the nature of those industry as such that they are not sellable, like steel industry. So so the banks are left with nothing but to just run the make sure that it makes profit, which becomes again difficult for the bank to do. And on the other hand, there are several service industries like airline industry. So in these industries, when the bank give loans and the industry defaults and it is not able to pay back, so they don't have a tangible asset to sell. For example, we saw the Kingfisher Airlines, which had taken a huge amount of loan from SBI, but in the end, they were not able to give back that loan. So what happened was, government gave the green signal to SBI to take over the Kingfisher Airline and sell their assets. What they found was that most of the assets, or the biggest assets that Kingfisher Airlines had, was their aircrafts, and those aircrafts belong to either Airbus or Boeing. They couldn't sell those aircrafts, they were on lease, and the other things which they had, only their employees and the brand image, and brand image which was already maligned, they couldn't sell it. So that's why they had to write off all the loans, and they are still trying to find Mr. Malia. But apart from that, the economic survey also talks about a new act which they are going to bring to tackle this twin balance sheet problem, which is PARA Act, or Public Sector Asset Reconstruction Company Act, which will be formed to buy the biggest and the highest amount of NPS and sell them to the market, and make sure that this NPS doesn't affect the public sector banks, and that public sector banks can give loan to other companies also. So this is a big problem nowadays, because most of the companies, the startups and the new entrepreneurs, they depend on the public sector banks to keep them afloat. So when the big companies are not able to repay the loans, the bank has to make a hard decision to not give any further loans, and therefore it has a virtuous cycle effect where the companies are not able to pay the loan, the bank is not able to give the loan, and therefore the economy slows down, and that's why it needs to be dealt with a severe blow. Given the linkages between the two, it is very essential that it is dealt with properly and as early as possible, because if it were in the foreign countries, people would have already lined up across the ATMs to take out all the money they had in the banks. But in our case, in India's case, the most of the loans or NPAs were in public sector bank. It is nearly $191 billion, which makes around 16.6% of all the corporate loans. So people have a belief that government will not let that bust, and therefore we don't have people lining up outside the ATMs to take out all their money after reading about SBI being defaulted by some corporates, and that is one good thing about the country. But then again, it needs to be dealt with unless it becomes a severe issue in the future.